The Browning High Power is a single-action, semi-automatic handgun available in 9mm and .40 S and W calibers. It is based on a design by American firearms inventor John Browning, and completed by Dieudonné Saive at Fabrique Nationale of Herstal, Belgium. Browning died in 1926, several years before the design was finalized. The High Power is one of the most widely used military pistols in history, having been used by the armed forces of over 50 countries. The High Power name is somewhat misleading and alluded to the 13-round magazine capacity, almost twice that of contemporary designs such as the Luger or Mauser 1910. The pistol is often referred to as an horsepower or as a GP. The terms P35 and HP35 are also used, based on the introduction of the pistol in 1935. It is most often called the High Power, even in Belgium. Other names include BAP, particularly in Irish service, or BHP. Development. The Browning High Power was designed in response to a French military requirement for a new service pistol, the Grand Rendement, or alternatively Grande Puissance. The French military's requirements were that the arm should be compact, have a capacity of at least 10 rounds, a magazine disconnect device, an external hammer, a positive safety, be robust and simple to disassemble and reassemble, and be capable of killing a man at 50 meters. This last criterion was seen to demand a caliber of 9 or more larger, a bullet mass of around 8 grams, and a muzzle velocity of 350 ams. It was to accomplish all of this at a weight not exceeding 1 kg. FN commissioned John Browning to design a new military sidearm conforming to this specification. Browning had previously sold the rights to his successful M1911 U.S. Army automatic pistol to Colt's Patent Firearms, and was therefore forced to design an entirely new pistol while working around the M1911 patents. Browning built 2 different prototypes for the project in Utah and filed the patent for this pistol in the United States on June 28, 1923, granted on February 22, 1927. One was a simple blowback design, while the other was operated with a locked breech recoil system. Both prototypes utilized the new staggered magazine design to increase capacity without unduly increasing the pistol's grip size or magazine length. The locked breech design was selected for further development and testing. This model was striker-fired, and featured a double-column magazine that held 16 rounds. The design was refined through several trials held by the Versailles Trial Commission. In 1928, when the patents for the Colt Model 1911 had expired, Dieudonné Saive integrated many of the Colt's previously patented features into the Grand Rendement design, in the Saive Browning model of 1928. This version featured the removable barrel bushing and takedown sequence of the Colt 1911. By 1931, the Browning High Power design incorporated a shortened 13-round magazine, a curved rear grip strap, and a barrel bushing that was integral to the slide assembly. By 1934, the High Power design was complete and ready to be produced. It was first adopted by Belgium for military service in 1935 as the Browning P35. Ultimately, France decided not to adopt the pistol, instead selecting the conceptually similar but lower capacity model in 1935 pistol. The HP35 originally had a rounded, serrated hammer with a hole through it. This lighter hammer was harder to cock and had difficulty firing the harder burden primed centerfire cartridges commonly used in Europe, often requiring a tightening of the hammer spring. This was replaced in 1972 by a spur hammer on both civilian and military models. However, the Browning Challenger and special variants of the Browning pistol still use the classic ring hammer. Design features. The Browning High Power has undergone continuous refinement by FN since its introduction. The pistols were originally made in 2 models, an ordinary model with fixed sights and an adjustable rear sight model with a tangent-type rear sight and a slotted grip for attaching a wooden shoulder stock. The adjustable sights are still available on commercial versions of the High Power, although the shoulder stock mounts were discontinued during World War II. In 1962, the design was modified to replace the internal extractor with an external extractor, improving reliability. Standard high powers are based on a single-action design. Unlike modern double-action semi-automatic pistols, the high powers trigger is not connected to the hammer. If a double-action pistol is carried with the hammer down with the round and the chamber and a loaded magazine installed, the shooter may fire the pistol by simply pulling the trigger so long as the slide was previously cocked, or by pulling the hammer back and pulling the trigger. In contrast, a single-action pistol must be cocked manually before the first shot, by pulling the slide to the rear and releasing it. In common with the M1911, the high power is therefore typically carried with the hammer cocked and the safety catch on. The high power, like many other Browning designs, operates on the short recoil principle, where the barrel and slide initially recoil together until the barrel is unlocked from the slide by a cam arrangement. Unlike Browning's earlier Colt M1911 pistol, the barrel is not moved vertically by a toggling link, but instead by a hardened bar which crosses the frame under the barrel and contacts a slot under the chamber, at the rearmost part of the barrel. The barrel and slide recoil together for a short distance but, as the slot engages the bar, the chamber and the rear of the barrel are drawn downward and stopped. The downward movement of the barrel disengages it from the slide, which continues rearward, extracting the spent case from the chamber and ejecting it. After the slide reaches the limit of his travel, the recoil spring brings it forward again, stripping a new round from the magazine and pushing it into the chamber. This also pushes the chamber and barrel forward. The cam slot and bar move the chamber upward and the locking lugs on the barrel re-engage those in the slide. As with any handgun, the high power has what could be considered design flaws. The standard trigger pull is heavy, especially for a single-action pistol. This disadvantage is a consequence of the high power's magazine disconnect safety, which was initially added to the model to meet the requirements of the French military in 1935. The standard high-power magazine safety is connected to the trigger and is released by a plunger pressing on the surface of the magazine. This action of the plunger on the magazine adds tension to the trigger pull, and the required force to operate this feature adds resistance as well. This problem is often resolved by removing the magazine safety entirely, thus voiding the pistol's warranty, or by polishing the interface surfaces between the safety plunger and the magazine. Aftermarket trigger springs with reduced tension are also available to improve the trigger pull. In addition, the pistol has a tendency to bite the web of the shooter's hand, between the thumb and forefinger. This bite is caused by pressure from the hammer spur, or alternatively, by pinching between the hammer shank and grip tang. Many HP owners fix this problem by altering or replacing the hammer, or by learning to hold the pistol to avoid injury. While a common complaint with the commercial models with spur hammers similar to that of the Colt government model automatic, it is seldom a problem with the military models, which have a smaller, rounded burr hammer, more like that of the Colt Commander compact version of the 1911. Nevertheless, its ability to hold 13 rounds of ammunition, nearly double that of the Colt M1911, made it very desirable as a military-issue pistol. Military service. Browning high-power pistols were used during World War II by both Allied and Axis forces. After occupying Belgium in 1940, German forces took over the FN plant. German troops subsequently used the high power, having assigned it the designation Pistol 640B. Examples produced by FN in Belgium under German occupation bear German inspection and acceptance marks, or Waffennames, such as WA 613. In German service, it was used mainly by Waffen-SS and Volkssturmgekurrenziger personnel. High-power pistols were also produced in Canada for Allied use, by John Ingalls and Company in Toronto. The plans were sent from the FN factory to Britain when it became clear the Belgian plant would fall into German hands, enabling the Ingalls factory to be tooled up for high-power production for Allied use. Ingalls produced two versions of the high-power, one with an adjustable rear sight and detachable shoulder stock and one with a fixed rear sight. Production began in the fall of 1944 and they were on issue by the March 1945 Operation Varsity airborne crossing of the Rhine into Germany. The pistol was popular with the British Airborne Forces as well as covert operations and commando groups such as the Special Operations Executive, the U.S. Office of Strategic Services and the British Special Air Service Regiment. Ingalls high powers made for Commonwealth forces have the British designation Mk1 foot, or Mk1, and the manufacturer's details on the left of the slide. They were known in British and Commonwealth service as the Pistol No. 2 Mk1 foot, or Pistol No. 2 Mk1, where applicable. Serial numbers were 6 characters, the second being the letter T, for example 1T2345. Serial numbers on pistols for the Chinese contract instead used the letters CH, but otherwise followed the same format. When the Chinese contract was cancelled, all undelivered Chinese-style pistols were accepted by the Canadian military with designations of Pistol No. 1 Mk1 foot and Pistol No. 1 Mk1. In the post-war period, high-power production continued at the FN factory and, as part of FN's marketing and product lineup, it was adopted as the standard service pistol by over 50 armies. At one time most NATO nations used it, and it was standard issued to forces throughout the British Commonwealth. It was manufactured under license, or in some cases cloned, on several continents. Former Iraqi ruler Saddam Hussein often carried a Browning high-power. Former Libyan ruler Muammar Gaddafi carried a gold-plated high-power with his own face on the design of the grips, which was waved around in the air by Libyan rebels after his death. While the high-power remains an excellent design, since the early 1990s it has been eclipsed somewhat by more modern designs which are often double-action and are manufactured using more modern methods. However, it remains in service throughout the world. As of 2007, the Mk1 version remains the standard service pistol of the Canadian Forces, with the SIG P226 being issued to specialized units along with the Sig Sauer P225. The weapon is the standard sidearm of the Belgian Army, Indian Army, Indonesian Armed Forces, Australian Defence Force, Argentine Army, Luxembourg Army, Israel Police, Singapore Armed Forces and Venezuelan Army, among others. The Irish Army replaced its Browning pistols with the H&K USP automatic in 2007. From 2013 the British Army is replacing the Browning with the polymer-framed Glock 17 Gen 4 pistol, due to concerns about weight and the external safety of the pistol. Specifications of the MKI: a locked breech, semi-automatic, single-action, recoil-operated pistol. The Browning high-power MKI uses a 13-round staggered magazine. Caliber: 9 mm, length: 197 mm, barrel length: 118 mm, length of rifled part: 100 mm, number of grooves: 6, direction of twist: right. Height: 127.5 mm, width: 36 mm, without stocks: 25.5 mm. Weight: 0.9 kg. With loaded magazine, 1.060 kg. Capacity of magazine, 13 cartridges. Modes of fire: single action, muzzle velocity, 350 ams, V12.50 340 ams. Muzzle energy, 500 AJ, safeties, half-cock notch, manual thumb safety, firing pin block, and magazine disconnect, trigger pull. 7.5 lb, effective range, 50 m, dispersion, at 15 meters, 95 m, at 30 meters, 200 m, at 50 meters, 320 m. Variants: genuine Browning high-power P35s are still manufactured by FN Herstal of Belgium and Portugal, and under license by Fabricaciones Militares of Argentina. The high-power remains one of the most influential pistols in the history of small arms. It has inspired a number of clone manufacturers. Many modern pistols borrow features from it, such as the staggered column high-capacity magazine, and the Browning linkless cam locking system. Until recently, FEG made an almost exact clone in 9mm and .40 S&W, but the company now manufactures a version with modifications to the barrel, linkage, and slide stop that are incompatible with genuine high powers. Arcus has also superseded its Arcus 94 high-power clone with the Arcus 98 DA, a model that draws heavily from the high power but is capable of double-action operation. The original P35, as noted earlier, featured an internal extractor. During World War II, it was manufactured by Ingalls of Canada for Allied use, and by FN in occupied Belgium for German use. The P-35s made under Nazi occupation were designated as the Pistol 640B. Most Canadian P-35s were manufactured with a Parkerized finish, while most P-35s manufactured in occupied Belgium had a blued finish. In 1962 the internal extractor was replaced with a more durable and reliable external extractor alongside other modifications, including a two-piece barrel and modifications to the locking system for improved durability. Later barrels and frames are not interchangeable with earlier ones. The L9A1 was the British designation for the military version of the post-1962 high power, and is marked pistol automatic L9A1 on the left side of the slide. It started to replace Ingalls variants in British service from the late 1960s, and the two types remained in service together until the Ingalls variants were finally retired in the late 1980s. It is still in service with the UK military forces, although now fitted with a more ergonomic Mk2 ambidextrous safety and grips. The L9A1 was also widely used by other Commonwealth armed forces. The high power was the pistol issued to the British Special Air Service throughout the Cold War era. Its usage was phased out in 2013 and replaced with the Glock 17. The Mark I is among the best-known models of the P-35 developed over the last 50 years. P-35s were first imported into the USA in 1954. The USA civilian market P-35s had the Browning Arms Company stamp on the left side of the slide. These P-35s lack the provision of the lanyard ring. The left side pistol grip for a Mark I is fully covered, unlike those produced for military and law enforcement use. A wide variety of options and features are available on the P-35 models. Recently, high-power pistols have become available in the .40 and W and .357 SIG loadings. However, the use of these calibers in guns designed and built for 9x19 and Parabellum has created cases of broken or warped frames. Only high powers specifically built for these rounds should be used to fire them. The pistols manufactured for these two rounds are easily identified by examining the left side of the slide. A groove is machined into the side of the heavier slide to allow clearance for the slide release. Genuine FN-produced P-35s or Browning for the civilian market will have a 245 prefix serial number. Some high-power variants incorporate production changes, for example spur hammers and or two-piece barrels. The Type 73 feet variant of the Mark I was produced in the late 1980s by FM Argentina when Mark II production commenced in the early mid-1980s. The Mark I lightweight is a very rare variant of the Mark I made with a lightweight alloy frame. According to Masat Ayub, these were introduced commercially in the 1950s but never caught on. The lightweights are marked only with Fabrique Nationale's roll marks, not Browning's. Mark II is an upgraded model of the original high power introduced in the early 80s. Some of the upgrades were ambidextrous thumb safeties, nylon grips, 3-dot sights, and a throated barrel. Mark III was another advancement over the Mark II released in 1988, which featured a firing pin safety and a black epoxy finish. The main distinguishing feature of the Mark III is the absence of the water drain hole below the muzzle on the forward face of the slide. Standard is the name given to the Mark III variant with walnut grips, gloss finish, and choice of sights. A Standard is a Mark III model, but a Mark III is not necessarily a Standard. The Silver Chrome featured a silver chrome frame and slide, and patch-mar rubber grips. The magazines for the Silver Chrome BHP had a dull finish and a black rubber patch-mar base pad. The Capitan is a Mark III variant that features adjustable tangent rear sights and a ring hammer like the early model HP-35, checkered walnut grips, and a blued finish. It was reintroduced in 1993 and is still in production. The Practical is a Mark III variant that features a matte blued slide and contrasting silver chromed frame. In addition, this model has wraparound patch-mar rubber grips and a ring hammer. The Practical has fixed or adjustable sights, and is available in either 9mm or .40 and W. Magazines for all Practical models sport patch-mar base pads. Magazines feature a cartridge capacity of 13 rounds in 9mm and a cartridge capacity of 10 rounds in .40 and W. The HPSFS is a current variation on the high-power Mark III with a modified firing mechanism. After the weapon is loaded, the hammer is pushed forward, which automatically activates the safety catch. When the shooter is prepared to fire, the safety is pressed down with the thumb, releasing the hammer to spring backwards into the usual, single-action position. A similar system is available for modifying Colt M1911A1S. Magazines are interchangeable with the Mark III and others. The BDA and BDAO models were first produced in the 1980s by FN. The BDA model is double action, and the DAO model is double action only, both versions differing from the usual single-action operation of the P35. These designs have been marketed as the HP DA and BDA. The DA and DAO models retain many features of the P35, and both are available in full-sized and compact versions. Performance of these models is consistent with FN's high standards. These models resemble the P35, but the most distinguishing feature is the extended SIG Sauer-style trigger guard. Many parts are interchangeable with the P35, but the magazines are not. The compact versions also utilize shorter magazines. The Browning BDM model is sometimes erroneously attributed as a special model of the high-power family of pistols. However, this is actually a unique pistol design only bearing an external similarity to the high-power. The BDM was produced during the 1990s only in North America by Browning Arms Company, and not by FN. The Browning BDM pistol incorporates many features of the BDA model, but can be switched from double-action single-action mode to revolver mode by the flip of a slide-mounted switch. Both the DA-DAO models and the BDM model borrow features from the SIG Sauer SIG P220 pistols marketed under the name Browning Double Action in the 1970s. The Beretta Cheetah has also been marketed by Browning under the name BDA 380. The Rosario, FM90 and FM95 models are manufactured by FM. The Rosario is an almost exact copy of the Mark II intended for Argentine and Latin American sales. The FM90 was an export model based on the Mark II, but with a Colt-style slide without the characteristic beveled front end. Rubberized pistol grips with finger grooves were used in place of the traditional slip sideward grips. The FM95 was the current export model based on the Mark III, also with the Colt-style slide. The last models, until 2010, are the MO2AR and the MO3AR with their detective versions. Pistol Auto 9mm 1A is manufactured in India by the Ordnance Factories Board at Rifle Factory Ishapur. It is a licensed copy of the Canadian Ingalls 9mm pistol with a matte black finish and black plastic grips. The Detective is a short slide HP produced by FM. The Detective slide group was also available without the frame, and is interchangeable with other FM and FN high-power P35s. The pistol and slide group have not been available for North American sales since the late 2000s, but can be found in resale outlets. Fabricaciones Militares of Argentina has also developed a double-action pistol, not using the HP DAR system. Although the Browning name will appear on pistols imported to the United States, the model name High Power will not be seen on any genuine FN Browning manufactured pistol, regardless of country of origin or location of sale. Euro clones will, however, place the high power mark. Users: an Argentina, made under license and used by the military and police. Australia, Mark III currently the general issue pistol for the Australian Defence Force. A Bahrain, a Bangladesh, a Barbados, a Belgium, adopted by the Belgian Army in 1935. A Belize, a Bermuda, a Bolivia, a Botswana, a Brazil, a Brunei, a Burundi, a Cambodia, a Canada. Canadian forces use pistols made by the John Ingalls Company of Ontario, Canada as their primary service pistol. Also used by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. A Chad, a Chile, a Republic of China, used pistols made by the John Ingalls Company of Ontario, Canada. A People's Republic of China, unlicensed copies were produced by Norinco. A Colombia, a Cuba, a Cyprus, a Democratic Republic of Congo, a Denmark, a Dominican Republic, a Ecuador, an El Salvador, a Estonia, a Finland, a France, used by Gendarmerie Nationale and French Air Force during First Indochina War and Algerian War. A Ghana, a Greece, used pistols made by the John Ingalls Company of Ontario, Canada. A Guatemala, a Honduras, a Hungary, identical copy was produced. A India, produced locally as pistol auto 9mm 1A by Indian Ordnance Factory Ishapur Arms using stamping dies from the former John Ingalls manufacturing facility in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. A Indonesia, general issue sidearm for Indonesian Armed Forces, especially by Komando Pasukan Katak Naval Tactical Diver Group and Komando Pasukan Khusus Army Special Forces Group. Made under license by Pindad as the P1. Iran, used by Iranian Navy Special Forces. Iraq, an island, used by the Irish Defence Forces, since replaced by the Heckler and Koch USP. Israel, used by YAMA and produced locally. A Jamaica, issued to officers of the Jamaica Defence Force. A Jordan, a Kenya, a Kuwait, a Lebanon, a Liberia, a Libya, a Lithuania, a Luxembourg, replaced by Glock 17. A Malawi, a Malaysia, general issue sidearms for senior rank officers and special forces of military and police. A Mozambique, a Myanmar, a Nazi Germany, over 300,000 pistols were made for the Wehrmacht after the FN factory was seized by Germany. Pistols were designated the Pistol 640, B. A Nepal, a Netherlands, a New Zealand, replaced by the SIG P226, a Nigeria, a Oman, a Pakistan, used by Special Service Group Navy. A Panama, a Papua New Guinea, supplied by Australia. A Paraguay, a Peru, a Philippines, a Poland formerly used by Polish Special Forces, no longer in use. A Portugal, since 1935, by the Gendarmerie Republican National Guard. A Rhodesia, a Romania, a Rwanda, a Saudi Arabia, a Sierra Leone, a Singapore, a Sri Lanka, a Sudan, a Suriname, a Syria, a Tanzania, a Togo, a Trinidad and Tobago, a Tunisia, a Uganda, a United Arab Emirates, a United Kingdom, adopted by the British Army in 1954 and by the Northern Ireland Security Guard Service in 1998. To be replaced by the Glock 17 Gen 4. A United States, used by the FBI Hostage Rescue Team. A Uruguay, to be replaced by Glock 17, a Venezuela, a Vietnam, a small quantity, brought into the country by Australian Army during the Vietnam War can still be found at Vietnam People's Army's shooting ranges. A Zimbabwe, references. External links, official page, FNH Firearms blog, High Powers and Handguns, FN Mod. GP Pictures, History and Disassembly Instructions for the Browning High Power, Browning High Power Prototypes, FN High Power Manual.